how to launch and grow my e-commerce business, what strategies works best, and how to make my customer buy again and again in my store. Hello, it's Martin, and today I receive Matt, who's been running e-commerce businesses for 20 years. He started in 2002. So I asked him, what are the best strategies nowadays to launch and grow an e-commerce business? And he shared with me what he does in his own e-commerce brand and the advices that he gives to other merchants that he works with. We talked about things that you can do with very little or even zero budget, and things you can do if you have more money to spend on marketing. And some of the strategies are not typical, I would say, like using Twitter to grow a skincare business or doing a podcast. I think you will learn many things from that experience, so let's go.
The thing you've got to bear in mind is every business is different. There are common principles which apply across all businesses. The best entrepreneurs understand how they work and how they function for their business. And so you take the principle, you look at your business, and you figure out how those two things work together. And so when it comes to creating a strategy for your e-commerce business, that in effect is what you're doing. You're taking these principles, these ideas, and you're going, well, what does that mean for me and my business? So that's all you're doing. You're understanding who your customer is. You're understanding what your product is, and you're trying to figure out the best way to connect those two things, which makes sense, right? So the strategy has to take into account that yes, I should do email marketing. Yes, I should do social media marketing. Yes, I should do ... But the way I do that is going to be very different based on my customer. Okay, in your mind, you're going to have to draw what we call a Venn diagram. So you have two circles. And in circle number one, we have something called your story. So I'm very keen to understand you as a merchant. I want to know what your values are. I want to know what the product is that you sell, or the product is that you're thinking of selling if you're starting out. I want to know why you run this business, what your big idea is, what do you stand for. All of those things, right? Because they really matter to you. That's your story. But of course, the customer, they care deeply about their story. So that's circle number two. And in there, you want to understand things like, well, how old are our customers? Is there a specific gender? Do they drive a specific kind of car? Do they drive cars at all? What kind of shops do they go to? What kind of restaurants do they eat in? So there's all those kind of questions that we ask over here. And so once we understand your story and once we understand the customer story, there's always going to be this place where those two circles overlap. And that is where successful e-commerce businesses build their brand. So you'll find that you can talk that language, you can use specific phrases or specific images or specific colors that make sense, where those two things overlap, where they sort of collide, which is what branding is all about. The questions are all around those two things. What's your story and what's the customer story, and trying to figure out where those two sections overlap. We set up a skincare brand a few years ago, and one of the challenges that I don't know why I did it, Martin, I have to be honest with you, it was all, every now and again I just like to challenge myself. But we were like, well, how could we do this with little or no money? And so what we did was we set up Twitter alerts. The reason we chose Twitter was just because at the time when we did this, it was an easy platform to do it on. I don't know if I'd do Twitter again for skincare. Fundamentally, you go to whatever platform your customers are on. Okay, so if they're on Twitter, go to Twitter. If they're on Instagram, do Instagram. The beautiful thing about social media is everybody tells you everything. There's no filter, and so we just started searching on Twitter. So an example would be someone wrote, oh, "My skin's feeling really dry today. What a nightmare!" Right, and they put that on Twitter. So we get that alert and go, "Skin's feeling really dry. Hey, can I send you some free samples which deal with dry skin? Because I think you'll really like them. All I ask is you just give me a bit of feedback." And they're like, okay, you're going to send me free skincare. And so we sent out samples, we got feedback from people, and lo and behold, a lot of those people, because your product was good, key point right there, would buy that product from you. And that's how we did that. We just spent hours on Twitter just basically offering to help people. And so that worked super well. With Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, there's question marks over, big question marks at the moment about the the effectiveness of Facebook being a marketing tool. But people are still going on to these tools and they're still telling you what's going on. And I think if you can connect with your virtual customer that way, why would you not? So for you guys, it makes total sense to be on Twitter, listening to people going, oh, I've just had enough of Shopify, rah, 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 rah. And you're like, hey, listen, I was there myself, right? And that's why we've developed this. It completely is the opposite of your problem. If you want to, you can have a free trial, an extended free trial. Normally it's a month. We'll give you 3 months. We'd love your feedback because I know you're a Shopify user and you can help shape this going forward. And they're going to be ideal customers, right? The ones that say yes, you're going to love those. You put them in a little community group and you go, right, you know, you guys are now going to help me shape this brand going forward. You'll quite easily get some raving fans that way. And so I think it's a tactic that I would definitely be using. If I had, you know, a lot of money to invest, that would be where I'd be thinking is like, how do I, if they're on Facebook, I need to be on Facebook, irrespective of whether I think Facebook is a waste of time. If they're not on Facebook, then I don't need to be on Facebook. I need to understand where they are. I would invest money in creating content which was engaging for that customer. And I would definitely be looking at short form content of some kind. The one thing that I would do, that I think everybody should do, is the one thing that you are doing right now, and that's have a podcast. And I think every e-commerce brand should have a podcast, which is a video podcast, even if it's a chat style like this. They're fairly straightforward to do, fairly inexpensive to do. But podcasting as an idea is a good medium-term business growth strategy that is unlike anything I've seen for a long time. And so I would be doing that. Would I be doing things like Reels and TikTok? Again, yes, if my customers were there. If they're not, probably not. But one of the things that I think is massively underrated is Pinterest. And Pinterest really interests me as a marketing platform. But again, it depends, does my customer live there? So I'd be starting a podcast, a video podcast. I would be figuring out where my customers are. I'd be creating interesting content and engaging content, and I would be hitting those platforms. A short-term strategy, you've got to have ads. Medium-term strategy, you can have organic. And I wouldn't do one or the other. I would do both. You take any product, right? So I'm just going to pick stuff off the desk in front of me, Martin. So I have in front of me this, right? It's a Lego Indiana Jones, one of my favorite characters ever, Lego Indiana Jones. Let's say I have an e-commerce site selling Lego Indiana Jones. How would you do a podcast about that? Well, geez, there's so much content just around Lego, around the Indiana Jones franchise, about growing up in the 80s. Plus then there's the doors that it opens. Let's say I manufacture Lego Indiana Jones, right? And you are a wholesaler. And I'm like, well, if I call you, Martin, hey, I've got these Lego Indiana Jones, I think you should buy them. I'm 1 in 20,000 people calling you trying to sell my products, right? But if I call you up and say, hey, Martin, listen, but I have a podcast. I would love for you to come on my podcast and offer great value. You're like, oh man, I've just been invited to be on a podcast. Oh yes. So you're like, sure, let's do that, right? And so what it does is it opens doors and builds networks like nothing that I've ever seen. So you build the podcast, you get some great guests on there, you put some great content in there. And then that feeds your website, right? So you can then take your podcast, you can chop it up, it gives you social media content, it gives you content for the website, it gives you your blog posts. You can repurpose that content in ways which is just straightforward and easy. One of the big problems that Shopify users have is traffic but no sales. And so you join the Shopify platform and they were very good at onboarding you with systems that would help you market on Facebook. That was the sort of route they went down for a while. And so it became this really common problem. It was like, well, hang on a minute, I've got my web store set up. I've done what you've said on Facebook ads. So I've got people coming to my website. I've just spent $400 getting into my website. But nobody is buying anything. I've got traffic, but no sales. Basically, there were three problems. And again, I appreciate this is generalization. This is, every business is different, but we always looked at three specific things. So if you've got traffic, but no sales, number one was your product. If you're getting people coming to your website and they weren't buying it, it could mean your product is rubbish, right? Or it's not something that fundamentally the customer wants to buy. It has low demand. And low demand products are never great products to sell on a website. The second source of problem that we looked at was the traffic itself. A really obvious example was that I'm an online butcher selling, steaks, and I go and grab a load of vegans and bring them to my website. They're not going to buy, right? So the traffic itself, what's the quality of the traffic like? And then the third thing that we always looked at was the website itself. So I could have a great product, I could have really brilliant traffic, but if they're still not buying, there is a fundamental problem with the website itself. It's not geared up for our customers to buy in a way that makes sense for them. And this was really common on Shopify, actually. You had people who would go, right, I want to set up a business. So I'm going to go to Shopify, put up some basic, awful template, right, which I like, my customers think is awful. So there's my website. So I'm building a website based around what I like rather than what my customers like. For my product, yes, it's true, right? And so my product, I'm going to go to AliExpress and I'm going to find a product which I like the look of. Sunglasses, was the common one. I've got sunglasses, I can buy them for like $1.50 and I can sell them for $20 on my website. So I'm going to put those on there. And the copy is boring, the pictures are boring, it's being drop shipped, so it's a 5-week delivery. The website looks like every other website doing exactly the same. There's 20,000 of them all doing the same thing. There was no standout, there was no nothing. And then they were just going to Facebook and going, find me people that have eyes. When you look at those three things together, you always found the key problems. And so, yeah, product would always be the first thing that I would look at. Is your product high demand product? Your website, is it actually any good? Does it make sense for your customer? What's the design like? How does that work? And then obviously, what kind of traffic are you getting to your website? We've spent the whole time talking about how we get new customers, right? But getting new customers is so much harder than keeping an existing customer. I'll tell you a story, right? At Jersey, our beauty company, a few years ago, we were thinking, customer story. What is the reason why a customer is coming to us? Because they were spending on average, a reasonable amount, like 80, 90 pounds per box, per order, maybe 60, 70 pounds per order, somewhere around there. It was a lot of money to spend on skincare, right? And so they typically buy 2 or 3 products. So there's an average order value of say 70, 80 quid, and they come to your website and you kind of think, well, why are they doing that? Is it just because they want skin? Their skin's dry and they just want this product. And you kind of think, well, no, actually what it is, the more we dug, the more we realized that the customers were buying a gift for themselves. It was a treat and it was to make them feel special. They were investing, right? And so we understood why people were buying what they were buying. And so we made some changes to our packaging. And we were like, right, we sent everything out in a brown box, right? And the products went in the brown box with the air pillows, the sort of plastic air pillows that you can get. And we just shipped it out. And we thought we were doing a good job because of all my competitors, they were shipping everything in the envelope. So their boxes were, the product was arriving all bashed up and damaged. And we were like, well, it's all nice and beautiful and pristine in our brand. So we thought we were doing great. But then we thought about this whole gift. You're buying a gift for yourself. It's pampering, it's luxury. So we took our brown box and we added another sort of flap onto it. So you had to open 2 flaps, which sounds a bit weird. But actually on the inner flap, we had printed this sort of beautiful message about how beautiful they were, right? And how amazing and awesome they were as people. And so you already felt good. And so then but you had to open another flap. So it felt like you were actually opening something. There was an experience there. And once you opened that, you saw the whole thing had been wrapped in a sort of a single piece of tissue paper, which we had cut to a specific size. And then when you open that tissue paper, so already you're feeling much more like it's a gift. And the other thing that we realized about our customers was the reason they shop with us, we like to have a little bit of fun. I mean, you think about the podcast, we were making fun of beauty magazines. We wanted to do something that matched this idea of fun, match the ever-growing ideal of our customers, which was sustainable. And plastic pillows, well, they're not sustainable, and they're definitely not fun. And so we took those out and we thought long and hard about what we could replace them with. And so eventually we settled on popcorn. So we started sending everything out in popcorn with tissue paper. So all of a sudden, customers are now getting something very, very different, and it feels special and it felt unique. Our repeat purchase rate went up an incredible amount, way higher than the industry averages, because of what we did. We focused on the customer service. And so the popcorn story is just one of those things. Customers were now posting pictures of their packaging all over social media, going, look at this is insane. And it was a real sort of point of differentiation for us, and I quite like that. One of the most important metrics in e-commerce, if not probably the most important metric that you have to know and understand, is customer lifetime value. So as you get bigger, you segment your customers out, like your best customers, your kind of okay customers, the bargain hunter customers, the customers that you're never going to see. Do you know what I mean? And you want to understand what your lifetime value is, and the sole purpose of retention marketing, that's whole, half your marketing budget in some respects should be devoted to increasing the lifetime value of your customer. I was always told that there's only 3 ways to grow a business, right? You increase the number of customers that you have, you increase their average order value, and you increase the amount of times that they buy from you, the average order frequency, right? New customers is new customer acquisition. Frequency is all about getting them to come back to your site and buying again and again. And average order value, if I can increase average order value for both new customers and my existing customers, man, I am winning the game of e-commerce in such massive ways. So focus on those 3 things and just constantly monitor your lifetime value. I think it's as simple as that in some respects. Keep what you do simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Think long and hard about how you increase the lifetime value of your customer, and you'll do super well. As long as you keep the customer story in mind, where that intersects with your customer story, and life's good.
A big thanks to Matt for sharing his experience with us. I hope that you learned something that will help you in your business. So if you like this video, we're releasing new ones every week with tips and strategies to help you sell online. So feel free to subscribe to receive them. I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.